What's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power, and I think the story of the day is Samson Dauda's latest physique update. In this latest update, he is 334 pounds, or 151.7 kilos, and he looks absolutely gigantic. Now, supposedly at the Prague Pro, he was exactly right around 300 pounds on stage, so he's 34 pounds heavier than he was a couple of weeks ago in Prague. Now, at the Olympia back in October, he was 286 pounds, so he is now 48 pounds, almost 50 full pounds heavier than he was on stage at the Olympia, and that was just essentially a month and a half ago. So essentially, he's put on like 10 pounds per week since the Olympia, even including competing in the Prague show. Now, Samson, in my opinion, has been one of the most interesting bodybuilders of 2025 because, as I've seen some people point out, it's interesting that since he won the Olympia in 2024, it's been kind of a rare thing that we've witnessed with Samson in the fact that he hasn't won a single show that he's competed in since he won the Olympia. Two of the shows being the reigning Mr. Olympia. That being the Arnold Classic, which he lost to Derek Lunsford at the beginning of the year, and then also the 2025 Mr. Olympia, which he was reigning Mr. Olympia going into and also lost to Derek Lunsford. But then even more interesting, competing in Prague, he looked a lot better than the Olympia. He looked significantly improved. The bigger, heavier version of Samson in this case really worked for him compared to the flatter, smaller, attempt at better conditioning version of Samson at the Olympia. But even despite that much improved look, he still lost in Prague to Martin Fitzwater, whom I don't believe he's ever lost to in his pro career. Now, to Martin's credit, I think it was the best Martin Fitzwater that we've ever seen, and I think he 100% deserved that victory, and I don't think Samson was beating him unless Samson was at his all-time best at that show. But Samson has made it clear on his YouTube channel in his recent posts that he intends to bring in 2026 the biggest, freakiest, mass monster version of his physique that he's ever brought. Now the question is, will that work for Samson in 2026? Could he reclaim his Olympia title? Could he find himself back on top? Because for so much of Samson's career, especially the last couple of years, it was very evident that he had all the size in the world. He made massive leaps and bounds in terms of putting on size. In fact, I'll put this side by side of the recent video that Samson posted from 2020, kind of the beginning of his career, then the video that we're talking about now. Clearly, a ton of size put on in between these two videos in the last 5 years. But I think up until Samson's Olympia win, the conversation with Samson was, yes, he's like the biggest guy on stage, tall, heavy, tons of muscle, but needed to work on that condition. And then in 2024, I think you could make the argument that both Derek and Hadi, they weren't at their all-time best. Samson arguably was at his all-time best, and he won. Even though I still don't think the Olympia that Samson won, his condition was better than Hadi's, for example. It was just good enough, apparently, to win. So the question is, all this time in Samson's career, the conversation is, he's the biggest guy, he's aesthetically pleasing, he just needs to nail that condition. And it seems like his mentality going into this Olympia was, okay, I'm going to focus on condition, come in a lot lighter than I normally do, and hopefully that brings the look that, the fans, the judges, other bodybuilders are saying that I need to bring. And that clearly didn't work out for him. In fact, it landed him all the way in 4th place after winning the Olympia last year. So it was not a good outcome for Samson. But instead of, seemingly finding like a middle ground look, maybe like the Prague look, it seems like he's now going in the complete opposite direction and saying, I'm going to be bigger and freakier than ever, and now seemingly chasing size. And I think the biggest Samson has ever been, I want to say, was like 345. Like the biggest off-season Samson I think we've ever seen was probably like 340 something, probably mid 340s. So are we going to see Samson now push it to 355, 365? How far can he go? And I like to remind people that if you look back at Big Ramy, And granted, Rami wasn't nearly as tall as Samson. I think Samson is a couple inches taller than Rami was. But Rami, being the biggest freak that we had ever seen, I think the biggest off-season weight that I remember seeing from Rami was typically 330, 335. That's what Samson is here, and supposedly he's going to get even bigger than that, and he's already been bigger than that. Samson, on paper, is bigger than Rami, really right now in this video. So I wonder if kind of going the opposite route, I mean, obviously the route that he went for this year's Olympia didn't quite work out for him, but I wonder if going the exact opposite route and going for this mass monster look, is that going to yield the same result? Is that not going to work out as well? And is it more of finding a balance between the two? Yeah, it seems like he over-dieted and went a little bit extreme this year for the Olympia. But then going to the opposite extreme, is that going to work? I agree that Samson looks better on stage at 300 pounds or over. The fuller look where his chest looks crazy, the side chest pose, he's full as a house. I think the look in Prague was a really, really good look for him. And I was, honestly, I was really impressed. The switch up that we saw from Samson from the Olympia look to Prague in just a couple of weeks, and the weight gain of, I guess it was 14 pounds of stage weight in that 2-week, span of time, it really did suit his physique much better. Samson is dangerous when he's conditioned, but full. That fullness in his physique is where I think he really steals, especially some of those side shots. I think when he loses that fullness, you really see him start to deflate a little bit. The back poses don't look as impressive. He doesn't look as wide. But I think the real question is, will we see Samson Dauda come back from this? This was 3 shows back to back to back where, one of them, again, I think Prague was a very good look for him. But 3 shows back to back to back that he lost. 2 of them to Derek, 1 of them to Martin. So it's a little bit different than a 1-show fluke. At the time of the Arnold, you could have maybe just said Samson was off at the 2025 Arnold in the beginning of the year. It was a fluke. He was off. Derek was the better man that day. And the next time we see him on stage, he's going to be dominant. He wasn't dominant at the Olympia. Then even in Prague, where he was much improved, he also wasn't dominant. So can we see Samson come back and reclaim the title? Is a bigger Samson going to be the Samson that does that? And again, by the time of March, when the next bodybuilding show is, the Arnold, Samson's going to be 40 in March. I think it's fair to point out that most bodybuilders are considered to hit their peak somewhere between 35 and 40, like their all-time best physique. Their all-time potential is usually between 35 and 40 is considered kind of over the hill. And granted, Samson did get a bit of a late start to pro bodybuilding. But I wonder, is this the beginning of a downhill trajectory for Samson, going from winning the Olympia to 3 shows in a row that he wasn't able to win? Is this the beginning of that downhill trajectory and it's all going to be downhill from here? Or is it possible, if Samson does this like freaky mass monster thing, that he completely turns the ship around and comes back and he's able to reclaim the title? Or maybe he does do a show like the Arnold at this point and maybe he's able to win. And I don't really think like it's different than like with Nick Walker, and so many people, at least, seem to have written off Nick Walker already based on his Olympia performance. But with Nick Walker, you didn't really see a downward trend in 2025. He brought arguably his all-time best to Pittsburgh, second place to Derek Lunsford, beat Derek at prejudging. He brought a fantastic look to New York, won New York, and then the Olympia was kind of the fluke. It seems like Samson had 3, you could maybe say 2 back-to-back flukes, and then 1 show that he just lost, being Prague. But I'll be honest, I'm kind of getting ready. I want to see the next Mr. Olympia that can be dominant and win 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 titles. I don't think anybody that we've seen win it in the past couple years is going to be that guy. Maybe Samson, I think, could potentially reclaim the title once or twice. Maybe Derek wins again. I really don't see Derek, Samson, or Hadi, the kind of perennial top guys. I don't see them being 5-time Mr. Olympias. Is Andrew Jacked the guy that could do that? Is it one of the newcomers? Is it a good Vito? Is it a Rafael Brandau? Is it a Nick Walker even? Is it a Martin Fitzwater? I just don't feel like we've seen dominance winning the Olympia in a while. And the most dominant Mr. Olympia we've had since Big Ramy has been Derek Lunsford. He's the only one of these guys to have won more than one title. And I know how a lot of people seem to feel about Derek. But I do think that's worth pointing out, that Derek Lunsford is technically the most dominant Mr. Olympia since Big Ramy. And I think that's saying something. And without going on too much of a side rant, speaking of Big Ramy, I'm very disappointed in the fact that Big Ramy kind of went on this mid-season rant this year on Instagram saying, winter is coming again, 2025 is the year, I'm going to reclaim my title. He did that for about 2 or 3 weeks, then we just never heard from him again, and he didn't compete at the Olympia, and we've heard nothing else since. I'm actually really disappointed in that. I honestly feel comfortable at this point, and sadly, because I want to see Big Ramy back on stage, but I do feel comfortable at this point. I don't think we're going to see Ramy on stage ever again. But look, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Samson Dauda, his new approach, this mass monster approach, he's 334. Does he turn the ship around with this approach, or has he won the Olympia already for the last time? Can he come back and reclaim his title? Can he rebuild the momentum? Or do you see Samson, do you look at the pattern and say, this is the trend? This is a decline trend that doesn't look like it's going to turn around, and he's getting older. The odds are we've seen him at his all-time best already. How do you guys see the future for Samson Dauda? And I think even a deeper question beyond that is, how do you guys see the future for the Olympia title? Will we see Derek do a three-peat? And I know this is going to piss some people off, but think about this. If Derek wins the 2026 Olympia and does a three-peat, that makes Derek the most dominant Mr. Olympia that we've had since Phil Heath. And I know some people are going to feel some type of way about that, but that would statistically be true if Derek wins again. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys, appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.